On August 9, 1988, Wayne Gretzky was traded south, and he took the NHL with him. For the NHL to be talked about in the same sentence as the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball, it needed a prominent presence in the United States. It needed more exposure on US network television, and it needed to grow its fan base. Gretzky's arrival in Los Angeles was the best way for the NHL to gain that exposure. In 1988, the NHL was made up almost exclusively of northern and eastern cities. LA was the only remotely southern city in the 21-team league. The closest clubs to the Kings geographically were Vancouver, 1,200 miles to the north, and St. Louis, 1,800 miles to the east. With 16 teams qualifying for the playoffs, too few people, even in cities with NHL franchises, paid close attention to the regular season. And when the playoffs came around, the NHL in the US was only available on cable television, with no exclusive coverage of games. But Gretzky instantly made hockey cool in Hollywood, with the stars coming out to see the Kings the same way they came out to see Magic Johnson's Lakers. It was the dawn of a new age for the NHL, where things would change rapidly and drastically. During the 90s, the NHL had two different US network deals, first with Fox and then with ABC. Combined with its cable sidekick ESPN, the ABC contract gave the league unprecedented coverage. By 2000, there were 9 teams with sunbelt credentials, and a decade that began in 1990 with the Stanley Cup finals between the Oilers and Bruins, ended in 1999 with a Stanley Cup parade in the heart of Texas. During the 90s, it became increasingly difficult for Canadian teams to compete with their US counterparts. 1 year after winning another Stanley Cup in 1990, Oilers owner Peter Pocklington continued to dismantle the Oilers, sending Mark Messier to the Rangers. The Oilers had severe money problems, and by 1994, so did the Nordiques and Jets. On top of that, the collective bargaining agreement between owners and players was expiring, and a labor strike was on the horizon. But before the CBA expired, there was enough time for a couple of the most iconic moments in NHL history to play out. On March 23, 1994, before 16,000 fans in hockey-mad Los Angeles, Gretzky scored the 802nd goal of his NHL career to surpass Gordie Howe. On the other side of the United States, another transcendent story was unfolding. The New York Rangers, who hadn't won a Stanley Cup since 1940, were having a special season. After winning the President's Trophy, the Rangers quickly dispatched the Islanders and Capitals before squaring off with the New Jersey Devils in the conference finals. With the Rangers trailing 3-2, Mark Messier gave his word that the Rangers would win Game 6. He outdid his prediction by scoring a hat trick to force a Game 7. The Rangers won Game 7 in double overtime, setting up a showdown with Vancouver in the Stanley Cup Finals. Vancouver pushed the Rangers the distance, before the Rangers put an end to their 54-year Stanley Cup slump with a Game 7 victory. The NHL was flying high in the United States. Michael Jordan had retired from the NBA, leaving the NHL's winter rival with an enormous void. Gretzky was the talk of the sports world on the West Coast, and the Rangers were making headlines out east. Sports Illustrated proclaimed that the NHL was hotter than the NBA. But then, less than 4 months after the Rangers hoisted the cup, the NHL went dark. Without a collective bargaining agreement in place, Bettman and the owners locked out the players prior to the 94-95 season. The season was slated to start on October 1, 1994, but was delayed until January 20, 1995, and only began after the owners and players struck a deal at the 11th hour. The new agreement gave the players expanded free agency, and the owners got a ceiling on the earnings of entry-level players. After a brief training camp, a 48-game schedule was set in motion. With the shortened season, a playoff mindset was in place from the outset. A defensive style of hockey permeated the league, greatly reducing scoring, a trend that would continue throughout the 90s and into the early 2000s. In 1995, the New Jersey Devils played better defense than anyone and reached the Stanley Cup Finals by employing the neutral zone trap. They faced off against the high-octane Detroit Red Wings, who hadn't won the Cup since 1955. Defense beat offense easily, as the Devils swept the Red Wings to claim their first Stanley Cup in franchise history. The Quebec Nordiques had finished the shortened season at the top of the Eastern Conference, but were knocked off by the Rangers in the playoffs. It was their final season north of the border. The Nordiques couldn't survive in Quebec City, and became the Colorado Avalanche in their new home of Denver. 1 year later, the Winnipeg Jets moved to Phoenix. That's all for this look back at the NHL during the first half of the 90s. Thanks for tuning in. Leave a like and a comment, and make sure to hit the subscribe button for more hockey history.